Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have with us 4 speakers who will address the following theme. It's part of the Climate Action Summit, obviously. The theme for this press conference will be the economy moving from gray to green. And the speakers with us today is Ms. Isabella Lövin, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Environment for Sweden. We have Mr. Prakash Javadekar, Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change from India. Then we have Mr. Premal Desai, the Chairman of the Executive Board of ThyssenKrupp. And finally, Mr. Dominic Waughray, Managing Director at the World Economic Forum. And to begin, I give the floor immediately to Ms. Lövin.
Thank you so much. And good morning to you all. Well, we all have heard the calls from the youth all over the weekend and all over the past months and years calling for action. Millions have marched in the streets, as many other historic movements have done before them. And I also heard the calls from the scientists, and the message is clear. Time for action is right now, and this is exactly what this summit is about, climate action. And as the Secretary General said, it's not about negotiations, and you can't negotiate with nature, so we need to cut emissions now. And we need also the heavy industries to be on board. For too long, being a front runner has been described as a burden for businesses. And for too long, we've discussed who should carry the burden. But being a front runner on climate change is not a burden. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do good and an opportunity to be the first to explore and implement new technologies and solutions that are good for society and good also for business. So Sweden and India are very honored that we were asked by the UN Secretary General to lead the industry transition track. In order to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement, it is necessary to achieve a dramatic reduction in the emissions from the heavy industry. As a result of our combined global work in the industry track, our prime ministers will launch a leadership group for industry transition today. It will be based on 3 central pillars: public-private collaboration, industry commitments, and innovation and technology exchange. Allow me to expand on just one of those central pillars for a moment. It's collaboration. What we've seen this past weekend is how the initiative of one young girl can lead to a world-changing movement. It's proof that there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come, and the time for the industry transition has come. The idea that heavy industries, steel, cement, aluminium, and many other can be climate front-runners is an idea that challenges powerful paradigms. But it's an idea whose time has come. I carry with me from Sweden examples of Swedish initiatives from LKAB, which is a mining company, SSAB, the Swedish steel company, and Vattenfall, the energy company, that have decided to collaborate and make the grey production of steel green instead. And I stand alongside others who themselves are ready to make their own commitments to contribute to reaching the goals of the Paris Agreement. I'm a strong believer that anything can be done when we do it together, and that's why I'm happy to see that we're able to launch this leadership group for industry transition later today at the Climate Summit. And I'm glad that Sweden and India will be joined in this group by Germany, Argentina, Netherlands, United Kingdom, South Korea, France, Finland, Ireland, and Luxembourg. And also several global business leaders and companies such as Scania, Dalmia Cement, Mahindra Group, ThyssenKrupp Steel, Swedish Steel, Vattenfall, LKAB, and others. And I invite others, countries and businesses to join the leadership group and collaborate on achieving a heavy industry transformation. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Madam Lövin has already explained, this is the good beginning by United Nations General Secretary General, that there are 9 tracks. Because if we want to mitigate the climate challenge, then we have to work together in each sector. And that each sector includes industry and heavy industry. And therefore, what we have done in last 2 days, heavy industry is doing their bit on their own without any incentive or outside help. They have decided to have a low carbon path, and many examples. In India, there is one Kochi International Airport which is completely solar powered. Dalmia industry is today's world's lowest carbon emitting industry, cement industry, and they are going ahead with a plan of carbon capture and use. So that is also another thing. Our SpiceJet airline has already used biofuels to take aircraft from one area, and passengers were also on board. And now they are also preparing for, that was Bombardier, now they are preparing for Boeing. So, and many countries, industries also gave their presentations, hybrid, and many other companies showcase their ambitions and their way out, and therefore we are very happy, satisfied. India and Sweden will continue to lead this group from the front, and will be meeting often, will be ensuring collaboration of more countries, and will also ensure that more activities take place and industries earn experience from each other, and they also benefit from all this. So the good news is that industry is ready. We have to solve only one problem, is that we have to present affordable technology. And therefore, joint research, joint efforts, low profits on those technologies which are very much essential to bring us to low carbon path are the real issues which will be dealt with this group also and the countries also. And as our Prime Minister said, that's my last point, each one of us has to discharge climate responsibilities based on our situations and capacities. I hope that the work under the industry transition track will facilitate early diffusion of technology and support to developing countries in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now give the floor to Mr. Desai.
Yes, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for having the opportunity to speak on behalf of ThyssenKrupp at this press conference. Thank you, Honourable Ministers, for having me on board. My name is Premal Desai, and I'm chairman of ThyssenKrupp Steel. ThyssenKrupp is a German industrial company with operations worldwide. Beyond being Germany's number 1 and Europe's number 2 in steel making, we also do other things like elevators and automotive components. We are fully committed to the Paris Climate Agreement of 2015. We will reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030. There's a commitment from the entire group. And we aim to become climate neutral in our own process and entire value chain, Scope 3 by 2050. Steelmaking today is globally a substantial carbon emission industry. And in order to significantly reduce carbon emissions in our steel operations, we pursue 2 main routes. The one thing is carbon capture and usage. We call that carbon to chem, to use steel emissions in order to convert them into base chemicals for the chemical industry. And the other thing, and which is probably more relevant, is carbon direct avoidance. We aim to replace metallurgical coal as chemical reducing agent in the steelmaking process with green hydrogen, so that in future, in the long run, no CO2 will be emitted in the production of steel. And let me be very clear, we are capable technically of doing that. And we have started at ThyssenKrupp in Duisburg, we have started this ambitious transformation already. As we speak, we are about to try to inject hydrogen into operating blast furnace operations. Keep your fingers crossed that at some point in the next months it should work. It is a complex operation because hydrogen in combination with the oxygen part, it has to be a very controlled chemical reaction. Due to our long technological investment cycles in the steel industry, this will take 20 to 30 years to change the whole production base we have. But we are completely committed to do so. However, we have to point out it will come at a cost. Only for ThyssenKrupp, we estimate the capital expenditure for this transformation to reach 10 billion euros and more by 2050. And at current prices, hydrogen-based steel will be costlier than the current carbon route. So therefore, we at ThyssenKrupp and the steel industry would request a reliable framework setting, and picking up on what the Honourable Minister said, I think there's some regulatory elements which could help this transformation succeed properly. Firstly, a true regulatory and economic level playing field worldwide that includes a globally consistent price for carbon, as well as fair trading conditions for steel. Secondly, global steel overcapacities need to be tackled in a meaningful way. We have considerable imbalances in steel production capacities worldwide. And thirdly, customer incentives and financing support will be necessary to develop a market for steel with lower carbon footprint. But above all, we will need high volumes of green hydrogen at competitive prices, as well as the necessary infrastructure. Green hydrogen strategies will be of utmost importance for all decarbonization efforts throughout industry. And that means that the amount of renewable energy has to be increased manifold. And this is something I think we can request the public-private partnerships to embark onto, that we can do this. Well, we at ThyssenKrupp have 2 centuries of experience in steel making on the carbon route. What we're trying to do now is reinventing steel to make it on a hydrogen route. It is technologically possible, we think so. It's going to be challenging, but there's no alternative, because steel will continue to be the material of choice for industrial development worldwide. And if you want industrial and economical well-being for the populations to come, we need to make sure that it is carbon neutral. So let me summarize. We can do it. We have started at ThyssenKrupp, even though major challenges have not yet been addressed by regulation policymakers. This must follow, not only in Germany. We completely are behind the policies of the German government, but also the European policies. We very much welcome the founding of the Leadership Group for Industry Transformation today, because I think this will only be possible together with businesses, societies, and especially also governments working together in a meaningful way, because this is a redefinition not only of technology, but of markets at large. So, to sum it up, we request to set the scene for successful transformation, because the steel industry wants to be part of the future and part of the solution to this whole issue. Thank you.
And to conclude, remarks by Mr. Waughray.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dominic Waughray from the World Economic Forum, and the World Economic Forum has been delighted and honoured to support the governments of India and Sweden in this industry transition process. We were honoured to be invited by the Secretary-General to join the steering committee and to focus very much on these key sectors of the economy, which, as rightly said, are drivers of economic growth, jobs and prosperity: steel, cement, chemicals, aviation, trucking, shipping. These sorts of backbone areas of the economy which have to be in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, net zero, zero carbon by 2050. It's a tough ask, but it is possible, hence a high ambition coalition to show leadership in the space. That's quite a dramatic and very important development in the industrial sector, and I congratulate all of those industry leaders and others who are seeking to go on this journey. And it's a journey of partnership. It's a journey of collaboration with governments, with innovators, and with new technologies and new forms of finance, which makes it a very, very important and interesting collaboration initiative that has come out of this climate summit. Some might ask, what's the real outcomes of this summit today? I would suggest that look to this high-level industry ambition on industry transformation as one of them, because there was not that kind of interaction between leaders from industry, leaders from government, and leaders in the innovation and financing space beforehand. There is now, and it will be carrying on at least through the various meetings of the UN on climate in Chile at the end of this year and in the UK at the end of next year when the Paris Agreement is to begin. It is a mission that is possible, and in fact, Mission Possible is the name of the enabling environment that we will give to deliver on this high ambition coalition, and we at the World Economic Forum are delighted to support and see that journey through, because it is technically and economically possible to do this. And it's interesting because the analysis from the Energy Transitions Commission, who are a key partner in this process to make this mission possible, have calculated that the cost to the economy of doing this job is less than 0.5% of global GDP. That sounds like a pretty good price tag to have zero net emissions by 2050 from a sector of the global economy that currently would be equivalent for about 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions. So we're very, very delighted to be part of this high ambition leadership coalition at the World Economic Forum to support the leadership that India and Sweden have shown, and various companies, including our colleagues here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's now turn to the floor to see if there are any questions. Anyone? Yes, please go ahead. Please identify yourself and the media you're representing.
Arul Lewis from Indo-Asian News Service. The question is to Minister Javadekar. Could you please tell us something more about what India is doing in terms of encouraging industries to go carbon neutral, especially in terms of cutting back on coal emissions, which, as the gentleman from Thyssen said, turning to hydrogen. So do you have such plans, and how are you tackling the coal issue? Thank you.
Very relevant question. As I said yesterday also, that we are probably few countries who have put carbon tax on coal production. We have $6 per ton of coal production, and the amount so generated is used again for climate-friendly actions. That's one. As I said, the emission even on the airport is a big issue, but our airports are going green, and they are now practically coming on, 2 airports are practically on solar energy now. So that's second. As far as alternative to coal, we are promoting all kinds of alternative to coal in industries and in other uses of coal. We are using coal also with good resource efficiency, and I'm very sure that India will bring out some good solution to this vexed problem.
And we can take one more question. Please go ahead. And please take the little microphone and introduce yourself.
If I speak loudly, can you hear me?
We need this, so it's you're good.
Okay, there we go. Julia Piper with Green Tech Media and Political Climate Podcast. What are some of the ways you're supporting the startup community or new innovations to address this sector? It is one of the hardest ones to decarbonize. So what are some of the other incentives? It was alluded to, but how do you create that ecosystem that maybe does not exist yet?
The idea is really to involve governments and industry and the research and all the parts of society that we can engage to find the right solutions. And I can tell you a little bit about the experience we have in Sweden, where we created a platform called Fossil Free Sweden, where we also asked all the sectors in Sweden. We set a target to become carbon neutral by 2045. And we also asked all the sectors, so please come up and present your own roadmaps to getting to net zero emissions by 2045. Also identifying where there's a need for change in policy, where there's a need for support in terms of resources, where there's needs in terms of cooperation, both nationally, but also, of course, at the EU level or internationally. And I think this is a really good way to work, to identify where are the hurdles, and also having the ownership of the different sectors and the industries in really presenting their roadmaps. And this was also something that we mentioned yesterday to the Secretary General on the idea about roadmaps. So this is the beginning of the road, so to speak. So your question will certainly be very relevant in terms of how are we going to promote the innovative solutions that are difficult and need resources and support in the startups.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Add one thing. as I said that we are taxing coal production, so money so generated is also available for startups and innovation, because that is where the solutions will be found out, and then it can be a transition to an affordable technology.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you all for being here. If you are sitting here in the room, please stay. As you know, there's a full schedule of briefings happening in this room this morning. And to all of you, thank you so much for being with us.
Briefing of all 9 tracks?
Yeah.
Briefing of all 9 tracks?
Sorry?
Briefing of all 9 tracks lined up?
Yes, several. I think we will go this
How are
way.
you? Very good.
Ja, men kanske bara till